My 40M wife, 38F, is keeping me trapped in a dead marriage. We started discussing divorce in late 2019. Due to a variety of things, it kept getting put off: pandemic, kids' school became distance learning, move for work, etc. In 2021 we moved to a state where a no-fault divorce can only happen if both parties agree. We moved together so that we could still co-parent and see our kids regularly. She has now changed her mind, and in this state there's nothing I can do. I moved to a different state, we were near a border, so that I could file there. After meeting with an attorney, I was told that yes, I can file in my state, but she can claim jurisdiction, because our kids live with her, and move the case to her state, effectively putting me back at square one. I was taking the no-fault route because it was really just a gradual breakdown of our relationship. Sleeping in separate beds, then separate rooms. We effectively lived as roommates and nothing more. There's no traditional at-fault reasons like drug use, adultery, etc. We spoke about it earlier today, for the first time in a while. She claims that she's keeping the family together because she feels it's morally right. She also has this belief that there are other entities at play, like some outside force that is controlling our lives. I told her that was batshit, completely detached from reality. She says that both our parents stayed together even when times were tough. Yeah, no. Both of our parents stayed together through misery, and neither were a good example of a healthy relationship. There is a lot of backstory. Early in our marriage she assaulted me, because she thought I was cheating. I was not. She had key loggers on my computer, voice recorders in my car, all sorts of shit that I now realize were massive red flags. I guess I didn't end it then because I couldn't bear the idea of not being with my son, who was 4 at the time. Over the years, things got a lot better, and we had our second child. Things were even pretty great for years after that, but it's just evolved into nothing over the past 3-4 years. We haven't been intimate in at least 3 years, and at this point I wouldn't even consider it. Here I am now though. I am miserable. Always angry, frustrated. I sit in my office at work with a constant lump in my throat because I'm constantly upset. I cry in the shower on a pretty regular basis. I'm seeing a mental health counselor once a month. Getting out of bed each morning is a monumental task. I love my kiddos more than anything, and try to do as much as I can to be a great dad for them, but it's becoming so hard. I feel powerless, hopeless, depressed. I'm considering antidepressants just to have a chance at feeling normal, but I know that won't change my situation. I don't know what to do. You don't need anybody's permission to leave. Just get out of that house, and start fixing things in your life one at a time. You're already single, in every sense of the word but one. Stop waiting for her to give you her permission. I think the vast majority of U.S. states have provisions to allow divorce if only one party agrees. My divorce went to trial. My ex still wouldn't sign off. But the judge reviewed the decree, it was in compliance with what the judge decided after the trial, and the decree was recorded over his objections. Like you, we lived in separate states when I filed. He contested jurisdiction, he lost. Most states allow for divorce if the other party cannot be located. I think you may need a better lawyer. No, you are keeping yourself trapped. You now live in a different state. Your marriage is over but the formalities. Just file and get it over with. Sir, you are allowed to leave a marriage you are not happy in. There's a lot to unpack here, but this is Reddit. Wanting to stay in a marriage requires both parties want to try and put in the work. You are still young. While this is unfortunate that you feel this way, it doesn't have to be forever. If you've already tried making it work and it's not working, I mean just throw in the towel and try to find happiness. This life is way too short to be sitting around with a lump in your throat for years. File. Maybe someone can clue me in. I know she can fight a divorce, but how is there nothing he can do? I was always under the impression even if someone fought a divorce it would eventually happen. At worst some states have a 1-year waiting period followed by whatever waiting time for the court to process things. How can she simply stop him from obtaining a divorce? I would look at talking to a different attorney in your state. They should know all about the system. I'm sure they can find something to file on. Dad wants me to buy his share of the house, and won't tell my mum he's planning to leave her. First time posting here, so forgive me if I do it wrong. My father, 56 male, is very emotionally unavailable and has been somewhat emotionally manipulative towards my mother over the course of their 30-year-old marriage. I am an adult in my late 20s still living with parents due to the rising prices of rent in London, and the nature of my job. Today my father announced to me that he wants me to buy him out of the house and that he's going to leave my mother, 57 female, and move out, and that I won't have a choice in the matter. I simply cannot afford that. He's also told me not to tell my mother about his plan. My mother and I constantly and have always walked on eggshells around him. He believes we are responsible for his happiness and mood. When he's not home, the atmosphere is so much better. I can't afford to rent solo right now as I have 3 animals which are vital to the work I do, one of which is elderly. Should I tell my mum? If I do, it's just going to make everything more hostile. I'm worried I'm going to be forced into buying the house too. Update 1. I was speaking to her about my dad and how he generally speaks to us like rubbish. She agreed that he does. To test the waters I said, "Why don't you just leave him?" And she replied, "Why would I leave him? I love him, I wouldn't do that." Update 2. Thanks to your comments, I told my mum. She already knew. Apparently whilst I was out walking the dog, and straight after his initial conversation with me, he came in, shouted at my mum and said to her, "So apparently I need to go to therapy, or we do a trial separation, or I leave." Single quote. Only this was about 4 hours ago and he hasn't bothered to tell me that he's told her. He also didn't mention to my mum that he's forcing me to buy him out. So I've been sitting here being anxious about it for no reason. And would have continued to be anxious had I not told my mum. According to my mum, he does this all the time when he gets in a mood. He's gone off to the gym now and me and mum are sitting here like WTF. So the moral is, don't get into toxic relationships. Your dad is blindsiding your mom and is gonna take advantage. Tell her to look for a lawyer. You're going to betray one of your parents in this matter. From the sounds of it, your mother deserves to know what he is scheming against her. If you decide to not tell her, that's a heavy blow to the heart. That's my opinion. Update. Thanks to your comments, I told my mum. Apparently whilst I was out and straight after his initial conversation with me, he came in, shouted at my mum and said, "So apparently I need to go to therapy, or we do a trial separation, or I leave." Only this was about 4 hours ago and he hasn't bothered to tell me that he's told her. He also didn't mention to my mum that he's forcing me to buy him out. So I've been sitting here being anxious about it for no reason. According to my mum, he does this all the time when he gets in a mood. He's gone off to the gym now and me and mum are sitting here like WTF. So the moral is, don't get into toxic relationships, people. You are under no obligation to buy his share of the house. Your mother needs to see an attorney right away to protect any assets that she is entitled to from the marriage. You need to tell her immediately. After reading through this, I have to agree with another commenter. Help and protect the parent that actually cares about you, your mother. No matter what you do, your dad is going to treat you like crap. Why would you help him? Give your mother a chance to protect herself instead of getting blindsided. Also, he can't force you to do that. It doesn't work that way. It's really shitty of him to put you in that position. I think you can tell him that if he doesn't tell her by Monday, or whenever, that you're going to. And also that you're not going to buy him out. My wife's best friend stood up for me. Hello, I'm a 30M. And my wife is a 31F. Today was a rough day for her. I'll be honest, the past month has been rough. She's just been extremely bratty and disrespectful for reasons that I really can't explain. She's been upset with me for small reasons. For example, she asks can she go to Atlanta for the weekend with her single friends? I answer and say no, and she immediately throws a tantrum and starts calling me insecure, controlling, and threatens to leave the marriage. This has been going on anytime I disagree with her. So today comes and it's my wife's niece's 1-year-old birthday. And her best friend ride together while arrive alone on my own to the party. I get there and I have bring frozen watermelon hunks with me, which can make a great frozen smoothie mixed with lemonade. I ask my wife's friend if she wants one before everyone arrives and she says yes. So I start making her and my wife one each. Immediately my wife comes in gossiping to us about another adult at the party. I'm literally making drinks with the blender, which makes a lot of noise. Literally 2 minutes later I ask my wife what happened and she starts going off on me saying I don't want to listen to her and there's no reason for the relationship. I just stay positive and say I was making drinks for y'all, but she's just being disrespectful in front of her friend, which I really hate. So I pour their drinks and go home. Was only there for 30 minutes. Just didn't want to deal with her attitude in public. My wife comes home and wants to talk, and she admits her best friend called her out in front of everyone. for the way she was trying to treat me. Immediately I was surprised. But my wife actually apologized for her behavior. Just want to know what I should do after this instance. She took the L and admitted her mistake. Relationships are hard and difficult to tell how one is really treating the other until an outside source lets them know how those actions actually look. I'd say stick with it. Hopefully this was a wake-up call for her. But if she continues the same habits with no regard to you or how she makes you feel, it may be time to communicate with her and possibly reassess your relationship. She cheated on you, and treats you like shit after? You showed her you were a doormat and it took outside foxes to show her she was wrong. Good luck living with that dynamic for the rest of your life. If you don't want to wisen up and leave, maybe keep that other friend around to stand up for you. She wants out, man, she's telling you to your face, but it's too coward to do it herself. So sorry. What you should do is hand her divorce papers and say, since you always want a divorce and want to be single, here is your chance. So either sign these favorable divorce papers or never treat me the way you have in the past. I expect and deserve only the best version of you. As I always give you the best version of me. You will not go run around and pretend like you are fucking single with your friends. We are a married couple, we will arrive at events together, we will do things as a couple. You can and will have your own things to do, as will I. However, we will always come back together at the end of these. So if you cannot do this, sign those fucking papers and let's end this, or you begin right now giving me the best version of you. Then sit and listen to what she has to say. She is yelling at you to manipulate you, so you let her do what she wants. When your wife threatens to divorce you, she is most likely cheating. This is a tactic to get you to shut up. Look her straight in the eyes, tell her if wants to run with the girls, she can keep going. Divorce her and tell her you will find someone who wants to be married to you. She goes to Atlanta, go have divorce papers drawn up and ready for her when she gets back. So she cheated already? You don't mention kids. Bruh, divorce. I don't want my husband to replace my brother-in-law. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm just going to give some background on the situation first. My husband, Adam, and I are both 37. We're high school sweethearts. My husband had a younger brother, Scott. He died unexpectedly a few months ago at 28. He left behind a wife, Clara, 22, and a 3-year-old son. Scott's death was a shock to everyone, and it's still hard to process. Scott had a large house and a lot of properties and assets, which were all left to Clara. She was understandably overwhelmed by all of this, so my husband said he'd help her sort through it all. Help her out with lawyers, etc. He also owned a lot of property with his brother, so now he owns and manages them with Clara. Understandably, my husband needs to spend a lot more time with her, which is fine because she's absolutely amazing and we all love her. Here's the thing, and I'm admittedly a bit embarrassed even writing this, but I'm concerned that my husband is going to replace my brother-in-law. Adam loves being helpful. He's a wonderful uncle and both him and Clara are in a really emotionally vulnerable state, so I'm just worried this is the perfect storm. Him and Clara are constantly texting, which again is understandable, since they're oftentimes talking about properties, legal things, etc. But it's also constant communication of small things during the day, starting with good morning texts and ending with good night texts, the same type of almost near communication you would have with a spouse. They also see each other for at least a few hours a day. My husband goes over Scott and Clara's house daily, which again I understand, but I'm still concerned. There have been a few other incidents that have gotten me worried. He missed one of our dates because there was an emergency at one of the properties. I later found out after the emergency they had gone for an hours-long hike, things like that. I don't know how I can talk to my husband about this without sounding crazy? Or like I'm accusing him of something, even though I get it seems like I kind of am? I don't think my husband or Clara are horrible people, I'm just not naive, and I can see how this situation looks and I can see the writing on the wall of how this could easily go overboard, and I don't want it to get close to that point. You should ask your husband to set proper boundaries with Clara. Go from there. You aren't crazy. Your feelings are valid. With that in mind, be gentle when raising the topic. My wife replaced her best friend's girlfriend during a rough patch. We are still working things out and I'm not convinced my suspicions are incorrect. But suffice to say that confrontation and accusation will not go in your favor. Have a gentle, kind word with your husband. You matter too. Missing the date would have been the last straw for me. You need to sit him down and remind him he has a wife and family at home. Whilst you sympathize with Tour Sil, he needs to put his family first and other members of the family need to step up and help. The way it is heading, it can lead to something that will destroy your marriage. 2. Emotionally vulnerable people can develop feelings very quickly. I think you need to insert yourself more into Clara's life. Make girls' days out and stuff so she isn't just depending on your husband. Husband can do business end, but neglecting you and taking her hiking is too much. You need to say you feel neglected because of how much attention he's giving Clara and you feel hurt and like less of a priority. If you can't say those things to him and have him listen and understand, then you've got a problem.